Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Myrna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it. Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio podcast and television show. I'm your host, life coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Karen Cheong, speaker, writer, and champion of self-improvement. And you know, that's what we are here. My focus is on self-improvement. So Karen and I are going to be talking today on the topic, releasing unconscious blocks that keep you stuck. Such an important conversation. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much for having me, Myrna. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, well, thank you for being here, and thank you for this conversation. As I was preparing, I always sit and set an intention before my guests come on board. And I'm saying to myself, you know what? There's a lot of people that get stuck. So I'm hoping that this conversation, is a light and a lamp to someone's feet. All right. So let me give you guys a brief introduction. Karen Cheong, the visionary force behind spherical luminosity, is an internationally renowned transformational speaker, writer, and healer. With over 25 years of experience guiding individuals on their paths to self-realization and empowerment, Karen has become a beacon of inspiration. Her own transformative journey, sparked by a health crisis in her early 20s, led her to explore mystical and energetic realms, ultimately uncovering the power of releasing unconscious blocks called distortion patterns. Today, through spherical luminosity, Karen empowers clients to rewrite their spiritual blueprints and embrace the abundance of the present moment. Awesome. All right. Yeah. Well, Karen, as we start off, let's set the table for our conversation. I always like saying,
okay. I like to eat, so let's go.
Yeah. Can you share how your health crisis in your 20s led you on your spiritual journey?
Sure. Well, I think for most people, they start their spiritual journey with some kind of crisis. At least that's what I've noticed. And so for me, it was a health crisis. And if you've ever had like a mosquito bite on like a finger or like on a knuckle or the back of your knee, you know how that can kind of drive you nuts. Well, I had that from underneath my chin all the way down to my ankles. And I was living in New York City at the time and getting to a very dark place, like really contemplating suicide because I hadn't been sleeping for a long time. I'd been going to see doctors and acupuncturists and all these kinds of things, and nothing was helping. And so I was sort of unraveling, or not sort of, I was totally unraveling emotionally. And so I ended up, my husband woke up one day and was like, okay, I can't take it anymore because I actually feel like you are going to take your life because you can't sustain this anymore. Like this is someone I love dearly who's watching the person he loves the most really come apart. And so he said, okay, I feel like we should take you or send you rather to this acupuncturist that your aunt has seen who helped her with her cancer in way across the country in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, in the prairies, and see what he can do. And it was fascinating, Myrna, because when I stepped into his office, which was like a week later, he took a look at me and he was able to scan me and said, not only can I help you, but you have this headache in the left side of your head and you have this like digestive distress. And he hadn't actually touched me at all. And I knew it was my first time.
I'm assuming he's a medical intuitive.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, he's an acupuncturist, and he is he's also a Western physician. So I guess we now would call him a medical intuitive, but I don't think he would call himself that. He was just looking at my chi body. He was looking at my chi body and being like, okay, this is where you're stuck. And I'd never encountered that before. And so, but I knew from the way that he was looking at me that he wasn't looking at me. Do you know what I mean? Like there was something different about the way he was interacting with me. And so within 5 weeks of just, herbs and needles and cups, I was totally transformed. And it began my quest and my, the seeking to answer the question of what is there beyond form that impacts us in our physical dense reality. Because he took me from a very dark place to something completely different in just 5 weeks. So I was like, what is there that we can't see? And then if you so that started my 25-year seeking for something different. And so fast forward, 25 odd years or so, I was in my real estate career with my husband and partner, Chris Sprague. We had a really thriving real estate business that was referral based in San Francisco. And I was noticing that no matter how much money we had and how hard we worked and all the different modalities I was implementing, from personal development to energetic things, because I was learning all these things and I was implementing them because I was like, well, let's see what happens. So I was doing all that, but I noticed that we just kept hitting a ceiling in terms of what we could produce compared to our colleagues who were not doing as much for their clients and yet somehow creating more abundance. And I was feeling lack no matter what it was that I was doing. So I wanted to know, how do I change how I feel? Because it feels terrible. I'm always running this really heavy scarcity pattern. There's something wrong. It doesn't matter how much money we seem to have. And it's funny how the universe answers your question of like, what am I missing? What am I missing? And that's when, and that's when I come back from a trip to France, and I was at my acupuncturist, and she said to me as I was leaving, it was like a really pivotal moment because time slowed down for me. And she said, have you ever heard of frequency work? And I looked at her and I said, no, but I need to. And so that's what began the journey to what I do now, which was like the latter part of my journey in terms of my spiritual journey. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. So let's circle back to the first thing you said, that when the acupuncturist looked at your body, he was able to tell you what was going on. Now, I've only heard that from a medical intuitive because they can scan you and they can, whatever. But when you said something different, you said he was looking at your chi body. No, your chi body is energy, and it's the same thing they talk about, whether it's chi, life force. I think even it's part of consciousness, but it's the unseen energy. And I guess when you do Reiki, it's part of the same kind of healing power, right? So he was able to see, and then now what you're saying is that you are doing the frequency work. So is chi and the frequency work that you're doing now different, or is it on the same thing?
Yeah, I love that question. It is different. So to me, chi, or what the Chinese call chi, the Indians call it prana. There's different words for life force. So those things to me are the energetic component of the thing that animates your physical body, in the sense of, I don't mean the divine within that animates you, but I mean like the physical energy that animates you and causes you to be alive. And yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's all in the same. Yeah, it's all in the same realm. So it's, to me, that's more of the body. It's more dense in vibration. So to explain frequency work and the difference, you have to kind of understand vibration. And so to me, everything is vibrating. And it's not a new concept, as you know, and your listeners probably do too. The scientists have been talking about this for decades. And the rate of vibration is what determines the form of the thing, right, that shows up. So if you take something very physical like water, when it vibrates, the molecules are vibrating fast, it's steam. And when those molecular vibrational patterns slow down, it becomes liquid. And then when it slows down even more, it becomes density or ice. So if you take that same idea and you extrapolate it out to consciousness, which is vibrating very, very, very fast, and whether you think of that very highly resonating consciousness as pure source, the one, divine, some people call it God, whatever you want to call it, that very highly resonating consciousness from which everything comes and to which everything returns, that is resonating very, very high in vibration. We can't yet measure it. And so that consciousness is oneness. So everything is part of it, and it is part of everything. So in order for it to be something else, it needs to drop in vibration, meaning for the oneness to even be aware of itself as separate from itself, there needs to be a drop in vibration. When that happens, frequencies are formed. When that vibrational level slows down even more, it becomes what you and I talk about as energy. And when it slows down even more, it becomes form or matter. And it even starts to show up as things like thoughts, emotions, or life force, like you asked. So to me, life force, because it's part of the physical body, is lower in vibration than frequency. Now, frequencies are the level at which, to me, everything on spirit works. So we always think in the physical, I think a lot of people believe that, you know, when we do things in our physical life, that is what changes things on frequency level, or what I call spirit level. But it's not. It's the inverse. What happens at spirit level or frequency level dictates, because it's higher in vibration. So if you change things at the frequency level, then your physical reality will reorganize around it. Not only just what your life looks like, but what thoughts you have, what emotions you have, how you perceive things. All of that changes when you change things at the frequency level. So frequency work is to release the distortion patterns at that level, so your physical life reorganizes around it.
Wow. Now, there's a lot of ways to get to the same thing, because I'm reading right now Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, The Placebo Effect, and that's what he's talking about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been to a Dr. Joe retreat, and he talks about frequency work at the end of his 7-day retreat. He talks about everything being at the frequency level, beyond the void, etc. That's what I do. I was like, oh, that's awesome. He's getting people ready for me. Amazing.
Oh, that's good, because yes, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about healing and changing the old you into the new you. And that's basically what you're saying. You change it in the unified field or the frequency or whatever you're talking, that affects your mind body or your body.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So that's wow. So that is great. But today we're talking about stuckness and releasing the unconscious blocks that keep you stuck. So one of the things you say is that there's an invisible thing. I'm not sure if we're calling the thing frequency, energy, that's keeping us stuck. What is that? Let's expand on that.
Yeah. So what keeps us stuck, from my perspective, is something I call distortion patterns. So distortion patterns happen at the level of the field. They come from a whole number of sources, like from your lineage, for example. So, the field of epigenetics is proving that what your ancestors experienced very much changes how your genes express, your choices you make, all that stuff. So your lineage or your ancestry, even if you don't know your 5th great-grandmother's name, what she experienced absolutely impacts you in terms of the frequencies of the distortion patterns that you run. So let's just say, for example, right, like there's some people, one of the clients that I work with, he's said that I had this when he started, I have this horrible fear that I'm not going to have enough food, but my pantry is full. And when we had to clear a whole bunch of stuff around starvation and war and a whole bunch of things, that lifted from him. Okay, so there's what your ancestry experienced, your cultural conditioning, your religious conditioning, which even if you're not religious, because there are a lot of people in the world these days who don't ascribe to a particular religion, but your ancestors definitely did. And so that impacts you. And of course, your past lives. So that's a short list, but that's the primary things that influence the distortion patterns that create you. So the distortion patterns are at the level of the field, at the level of frequency. And you know that they exist because you keep hitting up against them in your life. So, you might have a spectacular life. You might be really successful in business, have a lot of money, but then you really struggle, for example, in trying to find a partner. Right. And it seems that no matter what you do, always end up with somebody who is, emotionally absent, or you find somebody who is like emotionally abusive, or whatever it is. Right. And it doesn't seem to matter like what you're doing, whether it's coaching or, saying affirmations or whatever it is you're doing. You just kind of hit this wall all the time. And that's because the distortion patterns exist at the level of frequency, and you have to release those in order for your physicalness to change.
So that's interesting. Let's stay there for a minute, because I know that people normally attract the same kind of people, and
sure.
But so what you're saying is the distortion pattern is like the law of attraction kind of thing, or, for instance, when I love, studying narcissists, because they're saying that narcissists can actually look at someone and tell whether it's someone that they can control. They have his radar.
Yeah, totally.
So are you saying that's the same thing that's happening with this distortion, that we're just attracting to that person?
Yeah. So imagine yourself as broadcasting a frequency. Okay, so here you are, right, like a radio tower, broadcasting this frequency of who you are. But the frequency of who you are is distorted by these distortion patterns. So they create the static in the field that's you. So here you are, think you're being gloriously you, and you're like, think you're broadcasting this, but then all the distortion patterns are like, you know what I mean? And so the broadcast that is you starts to get a little bit muddy. And the thing is, you're right. So your distortion patterns call to you the reality which reflects them. So if you're somebody who runs the distortion pattern of victim or the need to be controlled, you're going to attract the narcissist, right? Because it's just like this open code, it's just this frequency. Now we think it's very mysterious, but it's like open source code, like literally it's just right there. So whether or not we can perceive it, like say the narcissist, it's like a magnet coming together, right? So here you are with the broadcast of the distortion pattern, right? And they're like, oh, well, I have a need to control. So it's like two ends of a magnet coming together, right? So you're going to create a reality where you're going to be controlled, and they're looking for a reality where they can control. So both distortion patterns are being fulfilled, actually.
Okay. Oh, wow. So how do we clear that? That's that question of the day.
I know, it was my question too. I was like, let's just get rid of these nasty suckers. Yeah. So it's what's amazing is that consciousness is rising. So this is not a surprise for many people. Many traditions have talked about this time as a time when consciousness is rising. And as that happens, people like me can work at the frequency level. It's really amazing. And just to back up out of this, we can all at some point, if we're clear enough, be able to work at this level. I'm not particularly special. It's just that I have to be a little bit ahead, you know what I mean, in terms of what it is that I can perceive. But we can all do this. And so, like I said, the narcissist is aware of the distortion pattern without being aware that they're aware of the distortion. Right. Do you see? So it's not like they have no.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. He just can tell, hey, she's vulnerable. I can control her. Right.
Exactly.
That's right. Really know that it's a distortion pattern or whatever.
Exactly.
I got you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Have you lost a job or had an unexpected expense or just got behind on your bills? Or maybe you just didn't know how important credit was or how credit works until you were denied a loan or car financing. Now that you know how important credit is, it's time to build your credit. Kickoff simplifies credit building with plans that are the fastest, easiest way to safely jumpstart your credit, making climbing back to credit worthiness simple and easy. No credit check required. Kickoff is very easy to sign up and get started. I remember when I lost my job and got behind in my bills, it took me a long time to build up back my credit. But Kickoff users are seeing results in just a few months. Users with credit under 600 increased their credit by an average of 28 points in the first month. It's simple. You make on-time payments, credit bureaus see your good behavior, and your credit grows fast. Build your credit fast with Kickoff, the best building plan to jumpstart your credit. Get your first month for $1. That's 80% off the normal price when you go to getkickoff.com/transform today. That's getkickoff.com/transform. Must sign up via getkickoff.com/transform to activate offer. Offer applies to new Kickoff customers first month only, subject to approval. Average impact of 28-point increase in first month based on Equifax VantageScore 3.0. Changes for Kickoff customers starting credit below 600 who made their first on-time payment between January 2021 and March 2024. Payments and credit activity outside Kickoff can have an impact on your credit. Terms and conditions may apply. Offer subject to change. Individual results may vary.
So my point is, as consciousness has risen and someone like me has cleared enough of my distortion pattern. So I just want to make it really clear. It's not like I was born and then like was some like chosen child and then like ping, I was out there and like doing my thing. It wasn't like that. I had to clear a lot of my own distortion patterns. I've walked the same path. So I was just a little bit more relentless about it in a way.
Right.
And I didn't really ask for it, Myrna. It wasn't like, on my checklist of things to do and accomplish in my life. It was like, be able to do frequency work. Like that wasn't on the list. You know what I mean? If you told me about this even like 6 or 7 years ago, I would have said that you're crazy. So it really has to do with vibration. And so to answer your question, what do you do to clear it? You release the distortions at frequency level. So what does that look like? So if you work with someone like me, then what happens is you'll listen to something that I call a group frequency calibration, which is going to sound a lot like a guided meditation. You don't have to sit still to do it, actually. You could go for a walk with your dogs. You could be cooking dinner or whatever, but it's to be in the field of that frequency resonance. And what happens is when you listen to a GFC, it's going to sound like a guided meditation. Some people sit for them. Some people lie down, but you are releasing the distortion patterns that are keeping you stuck, because I work at the level beyond space and time. This is exactly what Dr. Joe talks about, right?
Yeah,
a unified field.
Right.
This is way beyond space and time. And so when you work at that level, you can release the distortion patterns that cause us to be stuck. And, I talk about these group frequency calibrations, and people are sometimes skeptical, like, can that change anything? I'm like, do one every day for 30 days and come back and tell me if it doesn't work.
I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. I have been listening to some frequencies recently. I mean, meditation frequencies. There's tons of them. And I don't know which one to listen to, but I listen to a lot of them that says they're going to clear negative patterns. Some of them said it's going to do this. But one of the ones I was listening to the other day, and I haven't listened to it since, but he's talking about the tuning fork. And has that heard of that? The frequency of the tuning fork is doing something. So, all right. So that's very simple.
Yeah. And I would say if you can hear the sound of the vibration, it's still at the level of the physical. So the thing is, to work at the level of the field, there's no physical sensory experience, because it's at the level of the field. It's not in the level of the embodiment. So the level that I work with, you're not going to hear anything. I mean, you're going to hear me direct your attention and stuff like that, but there's no whenever it's going on in the background, I don't know what you're listening to.
Yes.
Yeah.
The frequencies that I listen to from YouTube, I hear it. It's, I can hear it. So you're right. You are at the level of the body if you can hear it. So you're not.
Yep.
Wow. Yes, they do say that if you are sensory, then you're not in the field. If you can see,
that's right,
taste, or touch, you're not in the field. Wow,
exactly right.
That is deep work.
Yeah, and so that's why when people say to me, "Do you see things when you work?" I say no, because I just know. Because it's not, as we're talking about the level of the field, it's instant awareness, because you're working at the level of consciousness, where you as infinite indestructible consciousness are aware of everything. So that's the thing about working at this level. Like you said, it's not sensory at all. So I don't, quote unquote, see anything, Yeah.
Right. That's amazing. I am conscious enough to, when I look into the sky and I don't see anything, I know there's a lot there.
Yeah.
I'm aware that there's something going on that I can't see anything, but I know it's there, and it's wow. That is amazing. Wow. Now this is deep. All right. So now let me say something before we move on.
Sure.
I am aware of a vibration. Yeah, and I'm aware because I got introduced to it by Abraham Hicks and the vortex.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm aware of vibration, and I'm aware of, that was all part of the law of attraction, but you're taking it a different level, right? You're taking it deeper.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. All right. So we talked a little bit about the frequencies or distortion patterns that create our world, in a sense where we're attracting something that's like the polarity of something, right? Like the narcissist and the victim or whatever. But how else can frequency affect our minds and our bodies?
Yeah. So, your mind, meaning your thoughts, your emotion, your physical body, those are a physical reflection of what's happening at frequency level. So you have to remember that everything exists at frequency level first. So when you start to shift that frequency resonance by releasing your distortion patterns. So here's the thing with frequency work, you're releasing distortion patterns. Why? So that you'll rise in vibration. I mean, it's very simple. That's all it is. And as you rise in vibration, you start to have different thoughts, emotions, and what your physical body looks like. So even if you take like a really physical example, right? So let's just imagine, I mean, this is why mindset work works, right? Right? So once you have a different mindset, what changes are your emotions, your thoughts, and even your physical body. So if you take that and raise it a bit, right? And say, okay, well, if you're going to shift this distortion pattern of low self-worth that you've had forever around the way your body looks, for example. So it's not going to necessarily be like instant on, like you're going to immediately love your body. But what I've seen people do is go from hating their bodies to being like, okay, I can be with my body. I don't have to fight it all the time, to being at more ease, and then eventually getting to the point where they start to really love their body. I think it's kind of a myth to think that you can go from loathing to love in like a one heartbeat, but like I've seen people make that shift, which is kind of amazing.
Joe Dispenza's workshops, because those people are remarkable things
they are
on there.
That's true.
In an hour meditation, they go from, but anyway, yes.
Yeah,
I see
exactly
that. But you've got to do the work. You've got to do the work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I like that. All right. Well, so you've used your work to become champion of self-empowerment. Mm-hmm. So how can we discover our best self using this frequency work?
Yeah, sure. I love that question too. So I'm just going to preface this by saying, there's a lot in the spiritual community that has been this tradition where we kind of will look to gurus or teachers or guides or whatever to save us. You know what I mean? Like they're going to wave their magic wand or say the mantra overhead or bless us. I don't know what they're going to do. And then all of a sudden, ping, you're going to be awake, right? All right. But the thing is, consciousness has risen and gotten to the point where really this is about discovering our own power and our own ability to awaken ourselves. Because as you said, this is about our own journey and our own empowerment. And it's not about passively lying there waiting for someone to save you. It's about empowering yourself and recognizing that you have the authority to shift your reality, to shift your experience, and to shift the way you feel. So I just want to preface my answer with that. So to become the best self, to me, often when people ask me this question, it's because they're thinking about the self from the ego mind, right? So, which is totally normal because that's how we think, right? We have our thoughts, we have our minds, and that's what we think is our best self. To me, the self is actually two components. There's what I call the little s self, or the ego mind, which is usually the perspective we have as humans. And then I have something that I call the big S self, or you as infinite indestructible consciousness, the aspect of you that is aware of itself as consciousness and as infinite, that has access to everythingness, to abundance, and all those things that we yearn for when we are stuck in our little s self perspective and feel that we don't have very much, or that it's limited, or that we're disconnected. So to me, when you start to release your distortion patterns, you start to become more and more aware of the big S self, you as this limitless aspect of consciousness, having an embodied experience. And as such, you start to be able to experience yourself truly as co-creator. Okay, so the thing is, we often don't think we're worthy of being co-creator, or that we're limited in some way, or that other people, they think about it as manifestation, and that, maybe other people can do it, but I can't. But I mean co-creator of everything. Okay, and so when you start to recognize this big S part of yourself, it's such a relief in a way, because you get this really expansive perspective. So I'm not suggesting you should put on rose-colored glasses and run around pretending everything is like kumbaya, and everything is glorious, because it's not, right? But it's really about having this experience of and I'm going to say something that may sound a bit trite, but it's like really the perfection of the unfolding of all things, because it's our humanness that resists that and thinks of things as bad and good. And I'm not saying you should just roll over and take things and have like a crappy experience. But there's also this aspect where you're like, wow, whatever you experience is for you. It's for you to grow and learn from. Now, you, as the embodied you, has the choice of what it is that you choose to learn, what it is you want to experience, how much you want to grow. And all of it is, it sounds, like I said, a little corny maybe, but all of it is perfect from spirit perspective, because it's all about life getting to experience life unfolding. And so to have the best self, to me, is when you release these distortion patterns enough that you have both these perspectives, because then you're empowered to have not only the best of the human experience, and then you also have this perspective from that spirit level as well.
I love that. My work has always been being a co-creator, that we're limitless. But it's okay to have the vision, and then it's a different thing to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because in order to do it, you've got to do the work. You know what I mean? But
yes.
I am conscious that, yes, that we are. I heard someone say something once that it was not Joe Dispenza, even though I love his work, that if you take a part of, like, I think it was Deepak Chopra. So, like, for instance, if you're the ocean, the wave is part of the ocean, and you can't remove the wave. You know what I mean? So what you just said is the same thing. We are part of the whole, right?
Yes.
Which means you have the same power as the whole. But
of course,
we only see the physical limitations. We know we can't fly. We know we're limited by gravity. And that's why I love Joe Dispenza's work, because he tells you to go into the quantum field or unified field where everything's possible, right?
Exactly.
And in order to do that, you have to become limitless. You have to become no one and no thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And it takes work to be able to do it. Now, what you're doing is putting it in a nice little ball or a little basket that says frequency. We know that, like God and spirit is operating at a different frequency than we are. And in order, like you said it, in order for, they have to come down to us in order to communicate, or we have to rise up to them in order to communicate. So yeah, you're making something that we're probably conscious of, and you're making it touchable according to me, right? You're making it, putting it in a nice little basket that says, this is how you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just this wide old concept, right?
Yeah.
That you never know how to do it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like you said, how do you become limitless? Like, so the question is, how do you become limitless? And that's actually part of what I help people do. It's like, it's an interesting concept, and it's around a lot in social media and books and stuff like this. But, my question when I began, like, way long ago when I was in my 20s and I first read The Alchemist and I first read The Celestine Prophecy and I
just read it again because I love it.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I love it too. It's one of my favorites. But it was like, well, how did they do that? You know what I mean? We'll give it a steps,
heart. How do you listen to the wind?
Exactly. But the wonderful thing is that when you do frequency work, it's sort of funny that I actually ended up answering my own question in a way many years later. But when you start to release the distortion patterns, it's this amazing feeling that is not from your mind. It is not a thought. It is not a desired outcome. It just is, because you start to become that aspect of you more, that is that big as self, because it has to do with vibration level. The higher your vibration, the more you can access from spirit level. And that's what Joe talks about too. Many people talk about the same thing because it's a universal truth. And so that's the thing, is it isn't something that you try to do necessarily. It just happens when your frequency resonance gets high enough. And a lot of people will think, oh, I have to deserve it. I got to say the mantras 50 million times. I got to sit in the position. I got to eat the diet and whatever. You don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is release your distortion patterns to raise your vibrational level. That's it.
Yes. That's what I said. You put it in a nice little bow around it that makes it easier to access. Because we also touched on something else called manifestation. Because a lot of people talk about manifestation, and the gurus talk about it, and everyone talk about it, and it's the same thing. But how do you get there? How do you manifest things? Obviously you think about it, and maybe you get a few little things or whatever, but this is great. I love this conversation because I know that it's there and it's possible. And
Yes.
yeah. And when you were talking a minute ago and you talked about consciousness is awareness. So
Mhm.
once you get into the awareness that it's possible, get into the awareness that, you're changing your distortion patterns and you're increasing your frequency and your vibration. And yes, wow.
Yeah. So to answer your question about manifestation, so here's the thing that most people don't think about. So a lot of people, when they think about manifestation and they want to manifest more, they always focus on the methodology. They're like, okay, what are the steps? What do I have to do? I have to imagine the thing. I have to feel the thing as if it's complete. I have to feel the joy. I have to feel the gratitude. I have to do all those things, and then it will come into form. Yeah. The thing that that people are not considering or realizing when there is that the methodology is much, much, much less important than the distortion, because the distortion running through your field will absolutely 100% affect what it is that you're manifesting. Again, remember, they're like the static in your field. So if you think the manifestation method is this clear, wonderful beacon going out into the universe, I mean, it starts off kind of like that, but then you have all these distortion patterns which get in the way of actually bringing something into form. So you have to actually do two things, in my opinion anyway. One is to release a distortion pattern around manifestation, which a lot of us have. And then the other thing you have to do is to raise your vibrational level higher than thought and emotion. So meaning you actually have to get into that quantum resonance. And the only way that I know of how to get to that quantum resonance is to release your distortion pattern. So you're at a vibrational level that someone can pull you into that quantum field. And then when you can access it and you learn how to do it, then you can do it yourself over and over again. That's when manifestation actually becomes very, very, very consistent and effective, because it has to do with vibrational level and the distortion that runs through your field. And if you don't have those two things, it's really difficult. So that's what I'd say about manifestation.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I had a guest on the show a couple months ago, and he talked about manifesting almost $1 million a month. And I started, I went on this course and trying to do my little 21-day manifestation, see what I can manifest. But you're correct. It's steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's steps. And yeah, but anyway, yeah. I do believe that if I did everything that he said to do, then maybe it might work for me. But you're very right. It's much easier if you get rid of the distortion patterns and then you do the steps, right? So,
Yep.
listen, I am totally buying this. I love it,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's really interesting that we're talking about the quantum and unified field, because one of the questions I have here is how can we use quantum leaping, which is something you talk about, and timeline jumping to accelerate our personal growth and transformation and get unstuck. So how does those two things, this quantum leaping and timeline jumping, different from, the unified fields or?
Yeah. So to me, those are not things that cause you to get unstuck. It's more like as you get unstuck and as your resonance rises, then you're able to timeline jump and quantum quantum jump and do all that stuff, right? So the thing is, a quantum leap and timeline jump. For just a second there, my brain fried out. But anyway, because the thing is, in order to be able to quantum leap, so what the heck is quantum leaping and timeline jumping anyway, right? And why would you care about that? So those two things have to do with being able to shift something very dramatic in your experience. So a quantum leap is to be able to project your consciousness so it can move from one consciousness level to another. Okay, it means that your vibrational level is high enough and you're sufficiently in that unified field that you're aware of the different levels of consciousness and can project your consciousness into different levels of awareness. Okay, so that requires quite a high vibrational level. When you do that, of course, your perspective totally changes, because as you move into that higher and higher levels of consciousness, everything changes. So for example, if you move from this consciousness level that we're in currently to the one into which many of us are moving into, a higher level of consciousness, Joe talks about this all the time, where in that higher level of consciousness, what changes? Well, first of all, even our sense of oneness changes. So right now it's a nice idea, but when you start to actually feel that what you do to someone else impacts you, what your choice of what you do is going to be extremely different because it has a direct impact to you. You see, what it changes is how we treat each other, not only personally, but how we treat the planet, how we govern ourselves, what healthcare looks like. All that stuff changes if you actually start to feel that you are intrinsically connected to each other.
Racism, the whole thing.
Yeah, all the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, racism can't exist in that. I mean, it's right. Yeah, because we're one. It's ridiculous. We're different flavors of the one. Now, a timeline jump is something that requires less of a frequency resonance, meaning a frequency resonance that is lower. So what is a timeline jump? So there are infinite timelines in the unified field, right? Because that is the field of the infinite. Okay, so what governs what timeline you get to experience is your vibrational rate, period. It's your frequency resonance. Everything comes down to your frequency resonance. Okay, so here you are in this timeline thinking that, whatever you're doing in your life. And then we've all had moments in our lives where someone comes in and an opportunity comes in and we say yes or no to that thing. And as soon as you say yes or no, your life totally changes. It takes like a different trajectory altogether. It's like here you were in your life, you said yes or no, and all of a sudden things completely changed. What you do, who you associate with, how you make money, all that stuff changes because you made that choice. Yes, you shifted timelines with that choice. So we don't think of it when that happens, right? So sometimes when we say no instead of yes, we don't change timelines. We continue on that trajectory. Right. And if you had said yes, you would have changed. Yes, that's simply what timeline jumping is. So what's awesome about frequency resonance and doing frequency work is that as you get higher in your vibration, you have more choice. It's just, you can just do different things. So you can start to, pardon me?
You attract more things that you can say yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so because you've entered a different timeline, what you experience will be different, and you get to choose kind of what it is that you want to experience, which is really fascinating. So who is attracted to you, who you collaborate with, what opportunities fall into your lap are all dictated by the resonance of the timeline that you're in. The higher your personal frequency resonance, the more of the unified field of timelines is available to you. Because why do people sometimes only experience certain crappy timelines? It's because the resonance is low. And it's not like the field isn't there with its infinite timelines. Of course it's there. The key is your frequency resonance. So the higher your own frequency resonance, the more those higher resonating timelines are available to you. So that's the key. It's easier than we think. And as you said, you have to do the work. It's harder to do in practice in the sense of you have to clear your distortion patterns, because you just sit here doing nothing, then nothing's going to change. However, the amazing thing is that we have the opportunity now to raise our frequency resonance and to experience things that are very, very different.
Right. I've been doing a little bit of this because Dr. Dwayne Dyer has always talked about positive emotions and positive energy. And basically what he's saying is that when you're in, and the same thing that Abraham Hicks says that, when you're in a different frequency, then you attract the things that's on your frequency. So if you're in a negative frequency, then you're going to attract all the negative things. If you're in a positive frequency, then you're going to attract, But I've always looked at it through the law of attraction. If I want to say those yeses that you're talking about and have people come to me to collaborate and, improve, my abundance in whatever way, then I have to keep my energy, positive energy, at a certain level. If you're talking with frequency, you're taking it a step further. So, but I've dabbled in the field, but I've just not gone that extra mile like you're talking about. So wow. And what you're saying, it doesn't sound like it's a lot of work. So,
well, it's not hard. It's like mindfulness. You know what I mean? People think, oh, mindfulness is really hard. I'm like, you just have to be present in your body and aware of what's happening right now. But it's easy to forget.
What Joe Dispenza talks about, that you've got to become no one and no thing and no place, and leave you behind. That's hard. But what you're talking about is not hard. So let's hear how we can. Tell us about your company, Spherical Luminosity, and tell us how we can get these frequencies, these distortions. Because I want some.
Okay. Well, what you can do is you can find me at sphericalluminosity.com, and we have our own podcast, and we have over 200 episodes now where I talk about how the world really works. So it's kind of like I pull back the curtain. So everything is created by frequencies, and we don't really understand that. It's a relatively new concept. So I talk about it. And more importantly, at the end of each episode, I give a free group frequency calibration where you can start to release your distortion patterns. So I would start there because that is free, right? I also for your audience will give a free Quiet Your Mind workshop, which it's actually not a workshop. It's a GFC, or a group frequency calibration, where you can start to oddly become a lot more still. You can sleep better. You feel more centered, all that sort of stuff. So if you go to quietingyourmind.com, you can get that free group frequency calibration, which is really needed at this time, because honestly, if you look at the exterior world right now, it's kind of alarming at best. So there's a lot to worry about, And so I created that just because I think people need the help. And then, of course, if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll find that same podcast of Mastering Your World Through Frequencies. So sphericalluminosity.com. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can find our podcast. And if you go to quietingyourmind.com, you can get yourself that free group frequency calibration. And the thing that's cool is that I drop an episode every other week. And then between that, I do like a YouTube live. So if you want to come on and receive a group frequency calibration live, then that's where you would come to do that. And we always do something that's really topical. And the latest one we did, for example, is the new consciousness BS. So,
Wow.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Great. That's great. Yeah. Love it. All right. Well, yes, this is definitely needed. And I'm excited to try this myself. So amazing. All right. What are your social media handles?
Okay. On Instagram, it's spherical_luminosity. And then our YouTube channel is Spherical Luminosity, unsurprisingly.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can find us pretty much anywhere online. Yeah, and if you want to listen to our podcast, you can go to Spotify, or you could go to Apple Podcasts. Yeah, we're basically everywhere. You can find us online too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing, Karen. This was a very illuminating conversation. I always knew that we were limitless. I always knew that our vibrations and energy is what allows us to to live the life of our dreams and to experience things. And you started out by using a word that I've always used: be co-creators of an experience, and not just have things happen to us, which is how most of the world lives. So you, just like I said, put it in a box and put a nice little bow on it. So that's beautiful. Yeah, you have. You brought it down to our conscious level that we can understand this work. So I love it. So yeah, I'll definitely be listening to your podcast, and I want that quiet in your mind thing, so that I mean, yeah, I'm a meditator, but I haven't done enough of the work to get to the next level. So, but at least I do it.
Yes, I think that's amazing. Yes. Doing it is half the battle, right?
Exactly. At least I do it. So this is great. All right, guys. Well, listen, this was a very, very deep conversation. Something that if you want to improve your life and improve your frequency and change things, then this was something that this conversation definitely will help you to do that. I will have a transcript of my conversation with Karen on the show page, which is myhelps.us. I will link her to her YouTube channel, her website, both of them. You have two of them, right? The Spiritual Luminosity and quietingyourmind.com, and also her social media handles. So, get as much as the free information as you can. And then if you want more, I'm pretty sure you've got some kind of coaching package or something, right?
Yeah, well, we offer anything from online workshops all the way to my most advanced mastermind, and we do live retreats as well.
Exactly, right. I know there was more. So yeah. So, you take the free stuff, and if you want to go deeper, then you can go deeper. So that's amazing. Oh, I love this. All right, Karen, listen, it's like I said, this has been a blast, very informative. As we wrap up, do you have any last words?
Yeah, what I would say is right now it is very easy to feel like we're disempowered, that there is no hope, and that the world is going to hell in a handbasket quite often, quite honestly. It just looks really bleak out there. And because things are becoming more and more divisive and more polarized, and this is a time where there's an opportunity for you to internally strengthen and to rise in your own vibrational level. And you don't need someone to do it for you. Okay, it's a time where it's to recognize our own strength and our ability as co-creator. So please do not give that to someone else. It is yours. It is your free will, your journey, your awakening. So to remember that you ultimately have so much more power and so much more magnificent brilliance than you think. So to remember that, even when it feels like you're not that much at all.
Yes, yeah, it's a powerful word. It's a powerful word. And I second that in every way. You know, the pastors normally say, well, you know, you don't have to come up here for me to lay hands on you. You have the power to go directly to God. Same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
You have the power to do it yourself. You don't have to wait for somebody to do it for you. So,
yes, amen.
So
yeah,
that's very true.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
All right. Well, listen, guys, again, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. And go ahead and do something about it. Do something about your life. Do something about your frequency. Do something to change what you're manifesting right now if you don't like what you're manifesting. Because as Karen says, everything that happens in the frequency world is how what comes down to your body and in your experience. In order to change what you're seeing in your body, you have to change the frequency level first, and then it filters down. Yep. So that's amazing. So I hope you got as much from this conversation as I did. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you so much for tuning in. Go ahead and definitely check out Karen's website and all the tools that she has left with us. And of course, I will link out to it. And Karen, I appreciate our conversation. So thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, namaste.